right, welcome to Information Ethics. Philosophy 310. Okay, so that's the course title. So we're not going to go over any of that. I think you pretty much know the syllabus. We'll just kind of go over the ethics and the relation to technology. Okay. First, what are ethics and how can they be distinguished from morality? Okay, so typically in groups we would say what you think morality is and what do you think ethics is. So we're going to make a distinction. What is morality and what is ethics? So morality consists of people's moral judgments, principles, rules, standards, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it is that which you observe in nature that is right and wrong. When you observe individuals acting in a particular way where they're granting obligations to others, they see that they need to do this or that and refrain from doing this or that, that is morality. Morality is what we observe in nature of what's right and wrong. Ethics, however, is the study of morality. It's using the tools and methods of philosophy. That's basically the difference. Morality is what we observe in nature as to what's right and wrong, and ethics is merely the study of that. It's the study of morality using the tools and methods of philosophy. Real simple. So we got 3 questions of ethical behavior. First we ask, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing it the right way? And am I doing it for the right reasons? The first one is, am I doing the right thing? That's really simple. And the example I usually use is I may have a stain on my shirt, like a mustard stain. The right thing to do would be to tell me I have a mustard stain on my shirt. So that's our first obligation. The second obligation is we have to do it the right way. So if you want to tell someone that they have a stain on the shirt, you're not going to yell it across the room because that would be embarrassing. You might be doing the right thing, but you're doing it the wrong way. Now the third is, am I doing it for the right reasons? So you may discreetly tell this person they have a stain. However, you might be doing it because you owe them money and you're trying to get out of owing them. So you might be doing the right thing, the right way, however you're doing it for the wrong reasons. So the 3 ethical questions we have to ask are these three things, and we have to fulfill these 3 obligations. Okay, the directive and architectonic role of moral ideas, principles in determining responsible behavior in cyberspace. So in cyberspace, we have a few different obligations as well. Directive meaning how cyberspace manages our moral content. So, when considering how we need to address ethical and moral issues in cyberspace, the first thing is directive meaning. So this means how are our ethical and moral dilemmas directed? The architectonic meaning is simply how websites, how various internet sites are structured. Some are structured in a way that makes it more easily to navigate morally. Others aren't. You know, you might have Facebook where it's really not structured in a good way to keep people from arguing with each other and doing the right thing and saying the right thing. So we have the directive and then we have the architectonic. The directive and architectonic role of moral ideas, principles in determining responsible behavior in cyberspace, our capacity to subject networked technologies, objective moral evaluation. In other words, parse out the moral issues we find and make them explicit. So the directive and architectonic role of moral ideas, principles are to determine the responsible behavior in cyberspace. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to determine what are our obligations, what are in our role, whether we're developing websites, whether we're fixing computers, whatever. What's that role? What's our ethical and moral role in that respect? And then the second is our capacity to subject network technologies to objective moral evaluation. So what can we do, right? If a website is made a certain way, if there is a certain culture, a certain demographic on the internet, how are we to even address some of these? So in other words, we need to parse out these moral issues we find and make them explicit and do the best we can to try to address them within the capacities that we have as IT engineers, software engineers, cybersecurity, and all that sort of thing. Then we got meta-ethics. That's just simply the study of ethics based on outside of ethical. It's basically looking at ethics from outside. You're not looking at whether something's right or wrong. You're looking at the basis upon which it's right and wrong. Why is that right or wrong? Why is it right to make sure that people are safe online? Why is it the correct thing to do to make sure people's data is not stolen, identity stolen, all those sort of things? So meta-ethics looks at those sorts of questions. Descriptive ethics is the study of ethics using science. It studies empirical facts about ethical acts, beliefs, and perspectives. So you have these three major branches. You have normative ethics, meta-ethics, and applied ethics. Normative ethics are generally the basic ethical questions like, is it right to do this? Is it wrong to do that? Meta-ethics is, why is it right or wrong? And applied ethics is, what can we do about it? How can we address these issues? So applied ethics is how we address them. All right, let's go on to the next one. Next set of slides, cyber ethics and code. So we have Larry Lessig, Code and Other Laws of Cyberspace. This is in our text, and we're going to read about that. You'll read about that this week. Lawrence Lessig is an American legal scholar and political activist. He's also known as the founder of Creative Commons and of Equal Citizens. Lessig is a proponent of reduced legal restrictions on copyright, trademark, and radio frequency spectrum, particularly in technology applications. So he doesn't want there to be major legal restrictions. He thinks the market, he thinks the people will parse these things out. People that don't like particular websites where they data mine, they won't go there. If they don't go there, they become less popular. They become less popular, they just sort of disappear. So if the less regulation we have and the more we rely on the marketplace of ideas and the market itself, the more likely all of these issues will be parsed out. Lessig has identified four constraints that regulate our behavior in cyberspace. So what he's found out that there's four areas that we are regulating. Laws. Well, the first thing is laws. Some things you simply can't do based on the government you're residing in. Rules imposed by the government on what we can and can't do online. There's some things you just can't do. Certain things you can't say, certain type of content you can't promote or to upload. We can't steal people's identity, all of these things. We have law. That's the first one, basic norms. What is considered appropriate etiquette? So even if you don't have a law for it, the norm would indicate that it's wrong just simply based on the culture we're in and what we consider to be right or wrong. So that's another thing that regulates. You shouldn't do it, and if you do it, you will probably be ostracized or you will be criticized by the public at large. The market, what we were just talking about earlier, that which is made available through market economic forces. If people don't like that particular website, they're not going to go there. If they don't go there, it's going to decrease in popularity, therefore it fades out. And the good and the healthy internet sites are going to be the ones that are the most popular, and they're going to be ideally, hopefully, the most ethical. And then we have the architecture. That's basically how many of these internet sites are designed. Aspects of architecture that feature digital technologies considers digital platforms as online spaces. Examples, the chat option on Facebook limits how we interact, right? So there's certain things on how each of these websites that limits how we interact and regulates them. Available categories on social media. May not be a social page for stamp collecting, blah, blah, blah. So how the architecture of the website itself will limit what we can do online. Let's go to these. Ethics and logic and philosophy. All right, so ethics using logic to determine the soundness of moral claim. So now we've talked about what's right or wrong on the internet, how to determine, how to navigate those questions. We have to look at a much more broader and general issue, which is ethics itself and how we use logic. So ethics itself, how we determine what is right or wrong using logic, that's how we determine the soundness of moral claims. The soundness of a moral claim is whether it's right or wrong, whether it's true or false. So logic's the study of valid reasoning. Claims are assertions of something assumed to be true. It can be challenged and requires support. So we have logic, which is the overall sort of basis upon which
make arguments and evaluate arguments and things like that. Claims themselves are just things we say. I say, the sky is blue outside. That's a claim. Now, it says nothing about whether it's being supported. It's just a simple claim. Or it is wrong to wear shoes to bed, or something like that. Or it's wrong to go into a grocery store with no shoes. That's a claim. I've not supported that. Valid reasoning is the proper or appropriate positioning of these claims in a body of support. So once I have a claim, like it's wrong to wear shoes into a store, I have to have a body of support, which would be, if you do that, then you might spread diseases and other people might get sick. That would be a form of valid reasoning. And that also includes a body of support, which are propositions that are supported by facts. It is a fact that people do contract various viruses from contacting public spaces that are in the public. Facts are statements that are objectively true and can be verified or proven through evidence or observation. The fact that viruses can be transmitted through that is proven through virology, or through what we know about biology. In logic, we're trying to connect claims with facts. So in logic, what we're trying to do is take these claims, like it is wrong to be barefoot and go to a store, with facts, which is what we were talking about, virology and sicknesses and all that sort of thing. Here. All right, these are claims. We'll go over these real quick. Yeah, we got a few minutes here. Yeah. So claims. My eggs were boiled yesterday. My uncle died last week. I was good to my neighbor yesterday. These are just claims. They may not be true. They may not be true. Now these are facts. These are claims that I have not substantiated with verified facts. These are facts which everyone agrees on and we know are true. All humans are mortal. We know all humans die. Water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. This always happens. We've tested it, and it always seems to be that water always boils. It's a fact. Deontology respects autonomy. That's a fact about that particular theory on ethics, which is deontology. Utilitarianism is another theory, and it seeks to maximize happiness. That's a fact about utilitarianism. Virtue ethics values virtue. That's another fact about virtue ethics. So hopefully you can see the difference between claims, which are unsubstantiated as of yet, unsubstantiated claims about what we've observed or what we feel is true. And these are facts which are not based on what we feel is true, but are verified by objective truth. And everyone agrees that these are true. Okay, so claims can be represented by variables. Claims are, okay, we won't go through that. That's kind of like a lot of, let's go, okay. So let's look at a couple of ethical theories. Deontology. So the first one's deontology. This was a theory that was developed by a guy named Immanuel Kant back in the 18th century. And what Kant says is that you need to respect autonomy. That is the highest good. That is how you determine whether something is right or wrong. If you're respecting someone's autonomy, if you are fulfilling your obligation of treating that person as an end in and of themselves, right, then you are doing deontological ethics. Utilitarianism, which is a theory that was developed by a guy named John Stuart Mill back in the 19th century, his view was that happiness is the goal of all ethics. If what you do is bringing about the most happiness, the maximization of happiness, then that is the right thing to do. Whatever brings about the least happiness and the most misery, the most pain, is something we shouldn't do. That's wrong. That's a vice. Now, the last one is virtue ethics. That's right behavior connected to virtue. So virtues are courage, temperance, liberality, and you see all these. Now, virtue ethics is predicated upon acting out a particular virtue. And that virtue, right, that virtue is embodied in you. And it's not like you're trying to figure out what the right or the wrong thing to do is. Rather, you're embodying these particular virtues and you're acting them out, and that determines what's right or wrong. That's virtue ethics. So we have deontology, utilitarianism, and virtue ethics. So in our text, you will read about these three. If you have any questions about them, just let me know. And maybe next week, we'll have a discussion board, if you guys are interested, in determining which one of these three you most connect with, which one is the most important to you. But that is all I have for this week, and I will see you guys next week. Keep commenting on the discussion board questions. It was great talking to you all. It was great. And I will see you next week. Have a good one.